the Paris Exposition of 1900, there were several competing sound films. The sound came from disc, as on Vitaphone. The difference is, with Vitaphone, there is amplification. The tube that made possible radio amplification, so a whole room can hear it, and you don't need the earphones anymore, is the same secret of the Vitaphone. Before that, the record is played with great force, so the sound can be heard in the first few rows of the theater, and a record would be worn out with one playing because the tracking was so under such pressure. So when Sam Warner came and said that he'd bought the Vitaphone process, his brothers are supposed to have said to him, "You idiot, you know, it's just like three-dimensional pictures. It's a novelty, it plays itself out in a year ago, and it goes away. It's not anything that people really will have any sustained interest in." But Sam Warner had a different idea from the experimental sound films that had been made before. The Warner's theaters were often second-rank theaters that could not afford live musicians or live stage shows preceding the film. So he had the idea of a mechanical one that everyone could afford, that the orchestra would accompany the Warner Brothers picture. It would be a large orchestra. It would be recorded one time, and then it would be played back in all the theaters that ran Warner Brothers pictures. And the stage show idea seems to have had something to do with getting famous artists to appear on the Vitaphone, as it was called, making short films. As for how we restored them, that has to do with a great deal of luck. In the early 70s, the Library of Congress received from the people who owned the materials, the United Artists Company, that they had bought from Warner Brothers, many of the Vitaphone early films. There are 800 of them in all, but only 400 of them had soundtracks. Some of them, the optical tracks that were added when the Sheelys were reissued. Since that time, we've been lucky in working with another archive, University of Southern California, Los Angeles, and with collectors of vocal recordings who have had some of these large-size, non-standard recordings that they've found through the years. The original Warner Brothers studio also kept the sound recordings, the discs. Many of them were damaged or lost over the years, and so that was incomplete. I can't prove this story, but I've heard the rumor that because the Vitaphone recordings, the not the test pressings, but a record of the final release, was stored near the sound stage at Warner Brothers, that maybe 20 years ago, when rock groups were recording in there to work off some of the tension between recording sessions, that they would use the recordings as frisbees. And although they're not easily broken, they were broken, and some of them were lost that way. Also, there seems to have been, from time to time, some break-ins, and some of them lost that way. So we're very grateful when another copy of this recording shows up in the hands of a collector. Now there is a group called Friends of the Vitaphone, and these are the collectors who have Vitaphone discs and are working through a consortium to deal with the people who have the films, such as the Library of Congress. And some of them have been cracked and have been glued together with epoxy, and you have a collector before he brings the recording to us who is steaming for days and weeks to get the glue off so that the recording can be re-glued with the right grooves together with the right grooves instead of the wrong grooves. It's been going on for approximately 2-3 years now that we've had the support and systematic development of this Voices of Friends of the Vitaphone. The Library of Congress idea of restoration is not similar to no noise or these interesting new digital ways of taking out imperfections in the recording, or perhaps brightening, or as said, sweetening the sound. That's a later step. We want Giovanni Martinelli to sound like Giovanni Martinelli, not to sound, quote, good, unquote, by contemporary standards. So the first transfers are all done flat with a minimum of equalization, trying to match the roll-off characteristics of the sound of the period. Then, if someone wishes to release commercially the title later, that sort of option is still open to them. But we try to retain the original sound characteristics of the original recording. We say that we're going to restore them all. We reserve the right to choose the order in which they are restored. And of course, the great artists that everybody agrees on will be put high on the list. But we hope to have, when it's all over, something more like a great variety show, such as the Ed Sullivan Show was, but for 1926, 27, 28. A great cross-section of what pleased the public then, so that sociologists as well as musicologists, as well as the public may be interested in what was acceptable entertainment of that day.